Good day today in here in Boeing, up around five and some change from yesterday's trading session. Might have a little run into earnings starting early here this week. We have earnings coming up pre-market on Wednesday, and also the news in here was new demonstration of the quantum satellite. Basically, quantum's going to be the new AI, right? So remember a few years ago, you just mentioned the word AI in earnings or coming into earnings. Boom, you have a nice little stock surge. Well, now quantum's going to be that new magic word in here, it seems like. So going forward, where does that put us? Well, on the weekly chart, really, we're kind of in no man's land down here. We're right up against this 9-day EMA. That's going to be our immediate resistance. 162.78 is where we're going to be looking at in here for our first resistance, but really up here, 173.45. That is going to be the main area of concern. We have a $10 expected move by next Friday. So that does contain your earnings cycle, obviously, and that will put us right there. Now, support wise, really nothing until you get down here to this 150 area, really 149. So we'll just chalk it up to 150. That's an easier number to remember for us in here. Again, $10 move puts us right there. So either way, it looks like both of these could be on the table by the end of this week. And obviously, good news for earnings coming out. And then obviously, this could rip higher and two times that expected move. And also, it could do the exact opposite as far as working our way down. Now, below the 150, there's really not anything until you get to 133 down here. Then we have this lower trend line on the weekly that we have been respecting ever since we go into last April. So that trend line there is being fully respected. So if we get anything lower than 133, we're going to be looking at that lower trend line on here. Above the 173 area, we have this upper trend line here that we have been respecting here in this past since February or so. We've been expecting this trend line. So it's looking like that is going to be a huge area of resistance for us above those 173s. But obviously, good earnings pop and then a nice little run after perhaps could push us above that and closer to this 200 SMA. But again, only about a $10 expected move in here by next Friday. So we'll see what happens going forward. We can dig in deeper here on the daily chart. You can see kind of what happened in here today. 3 green days in a row. Thought maybe you might get a pullback in here on yesterday, or at least some consolidations today. But obviously, with that news coming out, obviously, basically, this was the only stock that had a pretty decent day in here overall. And you see, we're almost heading to this 200 SMA in here. That's trading at 166. That's also going to be a gap fill they have to worry about here on the daily as well. So if you're looking for immediate supports and resistance on the daily, 166, that's going to be something that you're going to be looking at in here as far as above the 162s, right? Because I mentioned that 162 earlier, the 9-day EMA. But really on the daily, the 200 SMA is going to be your bigger number in here at 166 that you kind of have to be concerned about, and that gap fill getting taken care of before we do anything else. IV ranking here is at 39. Obviously, volatility getting sucked out of the whole market in here today, which means that volatility got sucked out a little bit in here in Boeing, but you still have earnings coming up. So your next week's expirations are still pretty juiced in here. Your next week's options expiration, that is, they're still trading pretty expensive relative to itself just because it contains that earnings report in that cycle. The following Monday or Friday, you have right around a $13 expected move. If you go all the way out to May, right around a $15 expected move here in Boeing. So again, we'll see what happens on the daily. 166, that's the number. If you go out to the weekly, your larger supports and resistances are going to be 173 and then that 150 area in there. And then on the weekly, you have to worry about the 9-day EMA to kind of confirm which way we're going to go in here. But again, it's all going to be news-based. Earnings coming up pre-market next Wednesday, April 23rd. So we'll see what happens in here. And if Netflix is any tip to us of how earnings may go this cycle, it looks like we might be pretty good. But again, you can't bank on that. Just kind of seeing what's happening so far, see what happens in the markets as we work our way into that earnings report next Wednesday. All right, guys, if you like this video, make sure to check us out on all of our social media. We also have a Discord service if you're interested, and you can find all of our socials in the descriptions below.